What were some of the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Challenges that are faced were during my career were challenges that faced every music teacher, I think, in America, and that is how to make our program important and survive the budgetary cuts. How to fit it into a new scheduling. Maybe it's trimester, maybe it's block scheduling, maybe it's housing. In my career, I can't even tell you the number of times that people change the way they're going to do things. They, oh, we've got this new idea, and every time you had a new principal or a new coordinator or something, they knew what we were going to do, so they'd make changes. So the challenges were how to make music fit into whatever the protocol was that the school was going through. And the best challenge, the best way to address that is not to be, it's to be an advocate, of course, for our profession, but it wasn't to say, okay, we're going to go out and do this, 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 and this. The way you address these challenges is to be the best teacher you can be. If you go in to your rehearsal room and you provide your students with quality music, and you expect them to play quality performances of that music, they are going to be the best both spokesmen and women for our profession, and they're going to leave that room believing that music is an important part of their life, and that becomes contagious. They take that message home, they take it out into the community, and they are the ones who then address those issues that we face. Yeah, we can go to school board meetings and we can go do this and we can do that. That is true. But the best and most effective way is to walk into the classroom and be do the best job you can. Be the best teacher you can be. And that will help solve or at least address the issues, and someone else will do the work. They'll do it for you. So when I talk about the challenges, whatever they are, can be addressed by good teaching. That's the way I feel. I feel strongly about that.
Why? I don't know if the listeners and viewers can tell, but I'm so inspired. I'm having a hard time keeping on my script. Why is ASTA membership so important?
Oh, ASTA. I told you earlier on that I had this experience in my high school. I had band and I had choir. There wasn't an orchestra within 100 miles. I mean, the piano was there 100 miles away, but there were no orchestra programs. So my experience as a string player, or being involved with strings, well, we had a community orchestra at Chadron State College. It was not a community, it was not a college orchestra, but it was made up of some college students, but mostly the string players were from the community, because we didn't have an orchestra on campus. We didn't have string majors. We had band and orchestra majors, instrumental and vocal major. So I played, because I was the bassoon major, I played in the orchestra and I played in the band. But when I came to Ann Arbor in 1967, one of my first responsibilities was to be I was the band director at my middle school. Slauson at that time was junior high, Slauson Junior High School. But I noticed on my schedule that I was also responsible for teaching 6th grade orchestra and 5th grade beginning instrumental classes at the elementary school. That was the other part of my assignment. And I went to the coordinator of music, who was Roger Jacoby. And I said, Mr. Jacoby, there must be some mistake, because I've never taught an orchestra in my life, and you say I got 6th grade orchestra. He said, oh, everybody teaches orchestra. Everybody teaches band. No, you don't have, he had a philosophy that you were not a choir teacher, a band teacher, an orchestra teacher. You were a music teacher, and you could teach anything. And then he kind of smiled. He said, now I know you don't have a background in strings, but he said, you just keep one lesson ahead of the kids. And I said, yeah, right. Well, that one lesson ahead of the kids lasted about a week, and they passed me. But so I thought, okay, I'm going to do what I can to find out as much as I can possibly find out, and ASTA was one of the organizations. And I heard about, I mean, we had our MSBOA, our state organization, but there was this other organization that was directly involved with just string players. And I thought, oh, I want to find out about this. So I joined up the membership, and I went to everything I could, and I went to workshops, and I went to conventions, and I did this and I did that. And during that time, here was this organization that I just couldn't believe how much I learned from the membership of this organization, who were so willing to help this kid from the Sandhills of Nebraska who didn't know anything, how to have a good bow hold, and how to do this, and how to eat, just simplest tasks of how do you size a child, the right size cello or the right size violin, and just very basic things. And these people took me under their wing, ASTA members, and they helped me out immensely. So my experiences with ASTA was absolutely just priceless, because they were some of the first, the members of ASTA were some of the first people to have an organization whose goals were to help others. And let's share. And oftentimes, some of my most memorable experiences were when I go to an ASTA convention, maybe not the actual programs themselves, but at lunchtime, we'd start shop talking, and we would chat. And I'd say, oh, that makes sense. I'd write these things down, and I would just listen to these string teachers back and forth, bouncing ideas. Oh, that's a good piece of music. Write it down. Oh, that's this, or I'd go to again a convention, and I'd hear this piece of music. I'd come back, and if it's not in the library, I bought it. So ASTA was a very important part of my early days of learning how to enter into the field of string playing, and it was and still is to this day an organization that's task should never be lost in terms of helping young people and old people who have had lots of experience. You look at the membership list of ASTA. It's got professional players and people in the professional performance world, as well as public school and middle school teachers. Yeah, so that's a very important organization that I give huge amounts of credit to.
You are one of my heroes. Who are your heroes?
Well, I've talked about Mr. Thompson. One of my heroes is someone, you may see some books behind me here. I'm going to pull one out. Let's see. Here's one right here. The Modern Conductor by Elizabeth A.H. Green. I want to quote something from Miss Green. I'm going to quote you something here. She's a hero of mine. She says, and this is from one of her books, The Modern Conductor. It's what she calls her credo. Music lives only when the notes fly off the page and soar into glorious sound. The performer, the conductor, releases them from bondage through his or her feeling for their message, through the power of the imagination, and by means of the physical technique one devoutly acquires. We build the technique only to ensure that our music can achieve its unforgettable moments, evanescent as they are, before once more returning to its prison of impatient silence. The most profoundly inspiring performances of a lifetime were those where the performer's technique was so superb that we forgot it existed. Music spoke its own language in its own way, uninfluenced by human frailty. The writer of that profound statement, Elizabeth A.H. Green, had a huge impact on my life. She was one of my heroes. When I went to Slauson Junior High School, I soon discovered that Miss Green had been the conductor there. I looked up on the wall, and here were plaques on the wall that said Elizabeth A.H. Green, 1948. Elizabeth A.H. Green, Division I rating, 1949. I mean, here were all these things. I discovered that Miss Green has spent 10 years at Slauson Junior High School. When she came to Ann Arbor, she came wearing two hats. One, she was at the University of Michigan, and two, she was in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. And so her responsibilities in the public schools was from beginning instrumental, beginning string playing, all the way through the high school. And middle school and junior high, Slauson was one of hers. Well, when I discovered that, again, when I entered into the string world, one of the first people I contacted was Miss Green. I called her up frequently. I had her telephone number memorized, and I'd call her often. She was one of my heroes. Another one of my heroes was Jerry Arnold. Jerry Arnold was a Suzuki teacher here in Ann Arbor, and she had just graduated from college, and she was this young, recently married, enthusiastic Suzuki teacher. And now we have our own children. We had our son, and he was 3 years old. And we took him over, and Mrs. Arnold took him under her wing and started giving him lessons. And Kay, my wife, of course, she was she was the parent who went along and did most of the sitting in the room week after week, and writing down and going home and making sure that he listened to this and did that. But I would go on occasion and I'd watch her teach. And of course, everything is on the outside when it comes to string playing in terms of developing your technique. And I used to say, oh, now I see what she's talking about. And here she was teaching my 3 or 4 year old son. And I would go back to Slauson and give the very same lesson to my junior high kids. And I learned so much from watching her teach. And my children started, and then we had our daughter, and she, sure enough, she followed in the footsteps. And those two took lessons from Jerry until they were in high school, till they were juniors, sophomores, juniors in high school. And during that over a decade of teaching, I learned so much from Jerry. She was just wonderful. And she was one of my heroes. And my own children and my wife, they're my heroes too. They helped out a lot. Because when my children became junior high school age kids, they were in their dad's orchestra. So they would come home, and you can't imagine what some of the discussions at the dinner table were. Dad, don't do that. Dad, oh, that was good, Dad. You can say that. You can do that. Oh, that was really neat. Dad. So I learned so much from just paying attention to my children, listening to them, and to my wife. So I've got my heroes are from my own children to people like Elizabeth Green. And I need to mention, there are 120 other heroes. And I just thought about this. This just came to my mind as I was thinking about this morning. Those 120 heroes are my student teachers. I had 120 of them, literally. I mean, exactly. I counted them. In my files, I've got every one of them, because you have to write letters of recommendation. I learned something from every single one of them. They taught me so much. Of course, your students your own students, they're your heroes too. But I learned some wonderful things from every one of my student teachers. And many of them still to this day are out in the teaching world doing wonderful things. And I learned so much from them. It was a learning experience. I was so excited. You may say, now wait a minute. You taught for 40 years and you had 120 student teachers. How can that be? Because you usually have one a semester. That's not the way it was when I first started here in Ann Arbor. When I first started teaching in Ann Arbor, there was a huge population of young music educators at the University of Michigan. And they came out and did their student teaching in groups, in blocks. I would have sometimes 3 or 4 student teachers at a time. And we had student teaching seminars every day. And we'd sit there and we'd listen, and they would critique each other. And I'd sit there and just listen. And it was just wonderful to hear their own discussions. I would learn things and just sit there and listen to them. It was great. So my heroes are lots of people.